In this video, I'm going to do the last 10 questions from the College Algebra Midterm Review. So again, if you haven't watched the previous video for questions 1 through 10, you can check that out. Here are questions 11 through 20. All right, so we have a history class is made up of 12 10th graders and 9 11th graders. The 10th graders have an average on the midterm, 11th graders also have a different average. What would be the average if you would look at the entire class together? So what I'm thinking is we have 10th graders, all right, and there are 12 of them, and they don't tell us, but there's some, all right, that if I add them all together, all their scores together, divide by 12, I get a 77 for the average, okay? Same thing for the 11th graders. There are 9 11th graders, and they have some total sum when you add all of their test scores together, and they have an average of a 91. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use algebra to find those totals, and then once I have both of those totals for the 10th graders and for the 11th graders, I'm going to add those together, right? So find those numbers and then add those together and divide by 21, because that's how many total students are in the class. So let's go ahead and use the calculator. Hopefully you have yours. All right, you should be using either the TI-30XS, or you can use your phone, or you can use Desmos for this. So I'm going to do 12 times 77. So 12 times 77, and get 924. Sorry. Plus, I'm going to multiply 9 times 91. So 9 times 91. I get 819. And when I add those together and divide by 21, I should get the average for the entire class. So 924 plus 819 divided by 21. And when I do that, I get 83 for the average. So the answer is B. Okay, let's do number 12. Number 12, which of the following is not equivalent to 3x minus 12 times x plus 4? So what you could do is you could multiply it all out. You could also choose all these answers and multiply them all out to see if it matches. You could also do some factoring. It's your choice. What I'm going to do is I know that if I were to factor out a 3 in those in that first binomial, I would get x minus 4 and x plus 4. All right, and then I know that when I multiply x minus 4 times x plus 4, I get x squared minus 16. So this one is going to be equivalent, so that's not going to be the answer. If I were to distribute the 3 times x squared, I'd get 3x squared. 3 times negative 16, this one would also be equivalent, so it's not that one. All right, so it looks like it's going to come down to A or B. We could also, if you wanted to, you could multiply this whole thing out and get 3x squared minus 24x plus 48, right? And you would see that that's not going to get us what we had in letter C. So A is not going to be A will be the answer. It's not equivalent. If you wanted to multiply this out, you could get, or if you remember your factor by grouping lessons from Algebra 2 in my class, whenever you take these things out from the groups, they actually make their own factor, and you bring down the common factor x plus 4. You'll notice that matches this. So that's why this one, D is not the answer. It's also equivalent. So the answer for 12 is A. Okay, 13. We have the cost of carpeting a floor is $250 per square foot. How much will it cost to carpet a rectangular floor that is 10 feet by 12 feet? All right, well, we're talking about square footage here, so I'm going to take the area of this. All right, so the area is going to be my length times width. So that's going to be 10 times 12, which is 120 square feet. So if it costs $250 per square foot, if I multiply 120 square feet times 250, I will get my answer. So 120 times 250. let's make it $2.50, is $300. That's 13. In number 14, it says if n is the least of two consecutive odd integers, which of the following represents the sum of the two integers? I kind of do this two different ways. The first way I do it is I just picked two consecutive odd integers. I picked 3 and 5. You could absolutely pick 1 and 3. For some reason, my brain always goes back to sometimes 0 and 1 can be a little bit tricky or maybe don't have the same characteristics. So I just chose the next two. So this is n. Then I could rewrite 5 as n plus 2. And it says which of these represents the sum of these two integers. So what is n plus 2? That'd be 2n plus 2, which is d. You could also then, if you wanted to, plug in 3 into the letter n, right? 3 plus 1 is 4. 3 plus 2 is 5. 3 times 2 is 6 plus 1 is 7. 3 times 2 is 6 plus 2 is 8. You can see only one of these gives you that sum, 3 plus 5, which is 8, so also D. That's another way to do it. Okay, 15. A couple of ways to do this. First thing you should notice is that if you have a negative exponent with a fraction, you should go ahead and rewrite this. All right, and it's to the negative first power, so I'm going to flip it. So y cubed, which was on the bottom, now goes on the top. X to the negative fifth power now goes on the bottom, and y is now also on the bottom. All right, so that takes care of that negative 1 to the power. You should also notice this x to the negative fifth power down here. When I teach this in Algebra 2, I always tell students, if you have a negative exponent, that should move across the fraction bar and it changed to a positive exponent, so that's x to the positive fifth power. And then the denominator is just going to be y. So the x to the fifth power is in the right spot. Now you have y cubed on top, y on the bottom. Which one has more? The top. By how many more? By 2 more. So the answer is going to be x to the fifth power, y squared, or C. 16. Okay, Raina has 5 coins worth 10 cents each. So 10 cents each. She's got 5 coins. And then she's got 4 coins worth 25 cents each. So 4 coins worth 25 cents each. If she chooses 2 of these coins at random, what is the probability that the 2 coins combined will be worth at least 35 cents? Now, when I actually teach this to my stat students, when they see the words at least, I usually tell them to think about finding what we call the complement, which another way to think of that is like finding the opposite. So if we're saying at least 35 cents, the complement to at least 35 cents would be less than 35 cents. And if it's less than 35 cents for the 2 coins, it would essentially be only finding 2 back-to-back 10 cents. So the way I think of it is, okay, your first chance when you pull out a coin is going to be 5 ninths, right? There's 5 10-cent coins out of 9 total coins. But then when you do it again, you're not it doesn't say you're replacing it. So now your new denominator is 8, and we've already picked out a 10-cent one. So if I write the new numerator would be 4, and this right here, right, if I multiply it, would be 20 over 72. This is not the answer, but this is the likelihood of doing less than 35 cents, or essentially 20 cents. Okay, so now if I do the complement to that, 1 minus 20 over 72, I will have my answer. Okay, so subtracting 72 over 72 minus 20 over 72 is going to give me 52 70-seconds. You don't see that in the answer choices because we can't reduce it. All right, you can actually, let's see. If you're having trouble, I'm having a little trouble with this. So I'm going to divide by, I think you do 36. No, I can't do 36. So I'm going to do divide by 2 to get, what is that going to be? 36 on the bottom. Divide by 2 gives me 26. There we go. Divide by 2 again, I get 13 over 18. So the answer is going to be 13/18, or C. 17. All right, they give us an equation. And this is, I don't know if you notice this, but this is a factored version of a quadratic trinomial. But it's just asking for the y-intercept. So I'm hoping you'll remember your days in Algebra 1 that y-intercepts are always going to be 0, comma, some number. So if you notice there's a 0 in the x-coordinate, all you have to do, it doesn't actually matter, just plug in 0 where it says x. I think that's the simplest way to do this. Gives you 6 times negative 1/2 times 3. If you multiply all that together, half of 6 is going to be 3. So negative 3 times 3 is negative 9, or A. Okay, 18. We've got the area of a triangle. Notice it doesn't give you the formula, so you need to know the area is 1/2 base times height, or base times height divided by 2. It looks like the base of this area is going to be x plus 1. The height is going to be x. All right, and they're saying that's the same as 21. So if I were to multiply both sides by 2, that will get rid of that 1/2. So multiply both sides by 2. And then if I go down here, that'll be 42 equals x plus 1 times x. Distribute, and you get x squared plus x. All right, and then I like to set this equal to 0 so I can factor it. So that's minus 42. Factors of negative 42 that add to 1 are going to be 7 and negative 6. 7 times negative 6 is negative 42. 7 plus negative 6 is 1. So my answers are negative 7 or 6. And you'll notice your x value, if it was negative 7, would mean your height is negative and your base is negative. So we can't have that. This is what we call an extraneous solution. So the answer is 6. That's it for 18. All right, 19. For which of the following values of x is the function not defined as a real number? Well, if you plug in each of these into your function, right, f of negative 2, f of 0, f of 2, f of 4, we'll see which one's not going to work. If I square negative 2, I get positive 4. 4 minus 4 is 0. The square root of 0 is fine, right? That's okay. So that would be fine. If I plug in 0, I get 4 minus 0. I know the square root of 4, it's 2. If I plug in 2, I get 4 minus 4. That's the square root of 0, so those are both fine. So it must be this last one. 4 squared is 16. Can you do the square root of negative 12? No, it would require an imaginary piece. So D is not defined as a real number. All right, the last one. We made it. It says we have a population of a certain species doubles every 9 years. This is a little tricky. If you remember our days in the previous unit of using this formula, you'll notice that it doesn't give us a rate, but it says it doubles. So that's essentially saying the rate is 100%, or if you change it to a decimal, that would be 1. And 1 plus 1 actually means that you're going to be using the number 2. A, if you remember, lowercase a is the initial amount. It says the population started with 100 individuals. So my first thought is A and B can't be right because it doesn't have the correct order of 100 times our base of 2. Now the question is it going to be 9 times t or t over 9? And it says the population doubles every 9 years. So if you go back to our discussion with compounding, if you remember this formula, right, we had n times t. That would mean how many times are we compounding throughout the course of the year. So if it was compounding daily, you'd have 365 times t. This is not saying you're compounding 9 times a year, right? It says you're doubling every 9 years. So letter C would be correct if it said it doubles 9 times throughout the course of a year. But because it's taking 9 years for it to happen, we actually have to use division, t over 9, because it's taking 9 years to do it just one time. All right, so that's it. Don't forget to watch that first video, and good luck on the midterm.